We often think of memory as the essence of who we are. We tell ourselves that our identities are built on recollections, on the stories we carry forward, on the ability to look back and recognize continuity. Yet beneath this comforting idea lies a stranger truth. For most of our lives, what we experience is forgotten. The majority of what passes through the corridors of the mind dissolves without leaving a trace. Entire inner worlds appear each night in dreams, rich with sound and color, filled with landscapes, faces, and impossible events, only to vanish within. Forgetting is not a flaw. Forgetting is by design. Think of the dream you had most recently. Perhaps you were walking down a road that seemed familiar and yet could not be placed. Perhaps you saw someone you once loved, speaking words that made sense in the moment but have already slipped away. Perhaps the dream was stranger still, bending physics and time, folding reality into impossible shapes. For the length of the dream, it was everything. You did not question it. You lived inside it. And then you opened your eyes. In those first fleeting seconds, you feel the afterglow of the dream clinging to you, as though it might remain. Within minutes, Each night, when you close your eyes and surrender to sleep, you are entering a hidden architecture. It is not a simple plunge into darkness, nor a single uniform state of unconsciousness. Sleep unfolds in cycles, in carefully arranged patterns that rise and fall like tides. These cycles are as old as life itself, carved into biology by the rhythms of the earth, by the alternation of light and shadow, by the ceaseless turning of the planet. To the waking mind, sleep appears seamless. One moment, you are drifting into silence. The next, you are awakening to a new day. Yet within those hours, your brain passes through intricate stages. The first is light sleep, where consciousness loosens its grip. Your muscles relax, your breathing slows, and the chatter of the mind begins to fade. This is the threshold, a doorway between waking and dreaming, a fragile balance where you are neither fully here nor fully gone. From this threshold, the brain sinks deeper. It enters slow-wave sleep, sometimes called deep sleep, where electrical activity takes on a rhythm as steady as ocean waves. In this stage, the body is at its most restorative. Cells repair themselves, growth hormones are released, the immune system strengthens. The mind, meanwhile, is wrapped in stillness. Dreams are faint or absent. It is a state of profound rest, the kind of silence from which life rebuilds itself. Without this deep stage, the body frays, the mind weakens, and health begins to unravel. Yet sleep is not complete without another stage, rapid eye movement or REM sleep. In this stage, the brain comes alive again, paradoxically, as active as it is during wakefulness. The eyes dart beneath closed lids, the heart beats irregularly, breathing quickens, and the brain generates visions, narratives, and worlds. This is the architecture of dreams. Here, memory fragments are woven into stories, emotions are processed, and the unconscious speaks in images that defy logic yet carry meaning. The cycle does not occur once, but repeats in patterns lasting about 90 minutes. Light sleep, deep sleep, REM, over and over, 4 to 6 times each night, like the verses of a song. Each repetition brings subtle changes. Early in the night, deep sleep dominates, allowing the body to restore itself. Later, as morning approaches, REM becomes more abundant, filling the mind with longer, more vivid dreams. What seems like one continuous night of rest is, in truth, a carefully orchestrated dance, each stage playing its part. Scientists have mapped this architecture through tools like electroencephalography, measuring the brain's waves as they rise and fall through the night. The patterns are unmistakable, revealing sleep as one of the most structured experiences of human life. And yet, despite all our measurements, there remains mystery. We can describe the rhythms, we can chart the cycles, but we cannot fully explain why the mind must dream, why forgetting is built into the process, or why sleep itself feels so essential to being human. Forgetting and remembering are threaded into this architecture. In deep sleep, the hippocampus replays patterns from the day, consolidating certain memories while discarding others. In REM sleep, the mind tests new combinations, linking thoughts and emotions in ways the waking mind would never attempt. Some of these experiments survive into waking memory. Most dissolve into nothing. It is as though the architecture of sleep were designed to keep what is useful, heal what is broken, and release the rest into silence. If you imagine sleep as a cathedral, each stage is like a chamber with its own purpose. Light sleep is the entry hall, where you remove the weight of the day. Deep sleep is the sanctuary, where the body is healed and rebuilt. REM is the hidden chamber, full of murals and shifting visions, where the subconscious paints in colors the waking eye cannot see. Together, These chambers create a structure of rest that has carried humanity through millennia. And though this architecture belongs to us, it is not uniquely human. All mammals dream. Birds too show signs of REM sleep, their small eyes flickering as though they fly in hidden skies. Even reptiles drift into patterned cycles, suggesting that sleep is older than mammals, older than warm-blooded life, perhaps as ancient as the first nervous systems. In this way, the architecture of night connects us not only to ourselves, but to the long story of evolution. To sleep is to participate in a ritual that life has practiced for hundreds of millions of years. The poetry of this design is that we never witness it directly. We do not watch ourselves descend into deep sleep, rise into dreams, or circle back again. The architecture is invisible, yet it holds us every night. It is like breathing or heartbeat, hidden until we choose to notice, but always there, sustaining us. In the stillness of night, as you listen and drift, remember that you are entering this architecture once again. You are walking its corridors, passing through its chambers, carried by rhythms older than your own story. You may not remember the details. You may not awaken with visions intact, but your body will know. Your mind will be changed, and the architecture of night will have done its quiet work. This is the mystery. To live, you must forget. To dream, you must surrender. And to be renewed, you must enter the architecture of night. There is a moment each night when you are neither fully awake nor fully asleep. It is a fragile bridge, a threshold where consciousness loosens its grip but has not yet released it entirely. Scientists call this state hypnagogia, but for centuries it has been described in other ways. The borderland, the twilight of the mind, the passage into dreaming. To experience it is to feel the fabric of reality begin to shift while you still believe you are standing within it. During this transition, images rise unbidden. You may see fleeting patterns of color, shapes seem familiar, and then vanish. Sounds may emerge, a voice calling your name, a fragment of music, a noise that startles though nothing has happened in the room around you. Your body may feel heavy and yet light, floating and sinking at the same time. These sensations last only moments, but they leave behind the strange impression that you have already begun to dream while still awake. The fragile bridge is unstable. To linger too long is to fall back into waking, or to slip fully into sleep. It is a threshold that cannot be held for more than an instant. Yet in that instant, the mind Forgetting often feels like a weakness. We lose names, misplace faces, let go of moments we wish we could hold forever. Yet if we look closely, forgetting is not failure, it is function. It is as essential to the mind as remembering. Without forgetting, memory would overwhelm us. The brain is not built to keep everything. It is built to choose. At the center of this choosing lies the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure buried deep within the temporal lobes. By day, it acts as the gatekeeper of experience. Sensations, emotions, fragments of conversation pass through it, and some are selected for storage. Others are quietly dismissed. The hippocampus does not keep everything because not everything can be kept. Our lives would collapse under the weight of every detail. By night, during sleep, the hippocampus becomes even more selective. Research shows that it replays patterns of neural firing from the day, strengthening those linked to learning, skill, or survival. But much of what we encounter is discarded. The ordinary, the repetitive, the unnecessary, all of it fades. This forgetting is not neglect, but efficiency. It is the mind clearing space for what matters. Dreams complicate this picture. When we dream, the brain generates entire worlds, stories, and emotions. Yet upon waking, almost all of it vanishes. Why? One explanation is neurochemical. During REM sleep, levels of neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, chemicals linked to memory formation, are unusually low. The brain is highly active, yet its machinery for encoding memory is dampened. We are immersed in experience without the ability to record it. The result is a theater of images that evaporates at dawn. Another explanation is functional. If we remembered every dream in full detail, waking life would be buried beneath competing realities. The hippocampus, therefore, does not prioritize dream content. Instead, it extracts fragments, emotions, insights, symbolic impressions, and integrates them quietly into waking memory. The details are lost, but their effects remain. You may not recall the dream in which you faced your fear, but you awaken lighter, steadier, somehow changed. Scientists call this memory consolidation, the process by which sleep strengthens useful memories while discarding noise. Studies have shown that students who sleep after studying perform better than those who stay awake. Musicians and athletes consolidate motor skills during sleep, their performance improving overnight. But consolidation also means forgetting. For every detail strengthened, countless others are erased. Dreams, then, may be the mind's rehearsal space, where ideas are tested and emotions rebalanced before the curtain falls and the stage is cleared. This erasure can be unsettling. We are creatures who crave continuity, who want to hold onto the full record of our lives. Yet the truth is that forgetting is what allows continuity. Imagine if you remembered every passing glance, every minor sound, every irrelevant thought. Life would fracture into chaos. The self would dissolve beneath a storm of details. Forgetting stitches coherence. It tells us which story to carry forward and which to release. There are rare conditions that reveal what happens when this system falters. Some individuals suffer from hyperthymesia, the inability to forget. They can recall every day of their lives with astonishing accuracy, every conversation, every event. At first glance, this seems like a gift, but those who live with it describe it as a burden. The flood of memory is exhausting, disorienting. They cannot escape the weight of the past. They are trapped inside an endless archive. Their condition reveals the truth. Forgetting is a form of freedom. On the other side are those who forget too much. Alzheimer's disease and other dementias erode memory, dismantling the continuity of identity. Here, forgetting becomes cruel. Yet even in these cases, science shows that not all is lost. Emotional memory often remains when factual memory fades. A face may not be recognized, but the feeling of comfort in its presence lingers. This suggests that forgetting is layered, and not all layers vanish at once. Dream forgetting sits at a strange intersection. It is both ordinary and mysterious. We expect to lose our dreams each morning, and yet we mourn them. We try to cling to them, writing them down, speaking them aloud, chasing their images before they dissolve. Why do we feel this pull? Perhaps because dreams remind us of how fragile memory is, how easily experience can vanish. They mirror the broader truth of our lives, that what is most vivid in the moment will someday be lost. And yet this very fragility gives life its poignancy. If nothing were forgotten, nothing would feel precious. Memory gains meaning because it is selective. To carry everything would be to carry nothing. Forgetting sharpens what remains, shaping the contours of identity. Some neuroscientists go further, suggesting that forgetting is not the opposite of remembering, but part of the same process. Memory is not a library, but a living system. Each time we recall, we reshape the past. Each time we forget, we allow space for the present. Memory and forgetting are partners in the dance of consciousness, inseparable and necessary. From the perspective of evolution, this makes sense. Species that could not forget would be paralyzed by information. Survival requires the ability to release what is irrelevant. The animals that thrived were those that remembered enough to adapt, but forgot enough to move forward. Humanity, too, carries this design. We are meant to let go. So when you awaken from a dream and feel it slipping away, remember, this is not failure. It is the brain protecting you, guiding you, keeping your story intact. Forgetting is the design that allows you to live in a single world, to walk forward with clarity, to be someone instead of everyone. The science of forgetting reveals something more profound than biology. It tells us that erasure is not the enemy of meaning, but its foundation. Without forgetting, there would be no story, no identity, no peace. To forget is not to lose, it is to be human.
Most dreams vanish before we open our eyes. They dissolve like mist at sunrise, leaving behind only the faintest trace of feeling. Yet sometimes a dream breaks through the veil of forgetting. It lingers, vivid and alive, as though it has carved itself into the stone of memory. These moments remind us that forgetting is not absolute. It is porous, selective, and at times strangely permissive. Why do some dreams escape? One reason lies in timing. If we wake in the middle of REM sleep, the theatre of dreaming has not yet closed its curtains. The images are still active, the emotions still burning, the story unfinished. To awaken then is to step directly from the dream world into waking awareness, carrying its fragments like embers. The recall is often startlingly clear because the transition was abrupt. By contrast, if we move through deeper stages of sleep before waking, the dream fades into the background of the mind, its details washed away. Emotion also plays its role. Research shows that dreams with strong emotional charge, fear, joy, grief, wonder, are more likely to be remembered. The amygdala, a structure that governs emotional intensity, remains active during REM sleep. When a dream engages deep feeling, it imprints more forcefully on the brain, slipping past the usual mechanisms of forgetting. This is why nightmares cling to us. Their intensity demands attention, searing themselves into memory long after the night has ended. Narrative coherence is another factor. Most dreams are fragmented, surreal, shifting from scene to scene with no logic. But occasionally, a dream unfolds with a story-like structure, complete with beginning, middle, and end. These dreams resemble waking memories more closely, and the brain encodes them with greater ease. A coherent dream feels like something lived, not imagined, and thus enters memory through the same doorway as waking experience. There is also the curious practice of intentional recall. People who keep dream journals or who rehearse their dreams upon waking train the brain to strengthen dream memory. Over time, this practice increases the likelihood of breakthrough. What might otherwise be forgotten becomes captured, anchored by attention and repetition. This suggests that memory itself is not passive but relational. What we choose to notice, we help to preserve. Dreams, like waking life, respond to the gravity of attention. Cultural history reveals that such breakthroughs have long been valued. Ancient societies often treated dreams as messages from gods, ancestors, or the cosmos. A dream that lingered was considered significant, its endurance a sign of meaning. Kings and prophets sought guidance in dreams that refused to fade. Even today, many people experience breakthrough dreams as revelations, shaping decisions, inspiring art, awakening new paths in life. Science offers more restrained explanations, yet the mystery remains. Why does a particular dream survive while countless others vanish? The answer seems to be a convergence of factors: timing, emotion, coherence, and attention. Yet beneath these mechanics lies something more profound: the recognition that forgetting is not random but patterned. Certain dreams are meant to slip through, just as certain waking memories are etched more deeply than others. When a dream breaks through, it often carries the weight of symbolism: a loved one long gone appearing at a doorway, a mountain climbed with impossible ease, a fall into darkness that never lands. These images haunt us not because they are literal, but because they feel archetypal, touching layers of the psyche older than language. They break through not merely as memories, but as mythologies whispered to us in the language of the unconscious. Such moments remind us that dreams, though fleeting, shape the texture of our inner lives. Even the forgotten ones leave traces, subtle shifts in mood, hidden adjustments of perspective. But the remembered dreams, the breakthroughs, become landmarks in the landscape of the self. We carry them for years, even decades, long after their original context has faded. They become stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And perhaps this is the hidden gift of forgetting. It sharpens the breakthrough. If we remembered every dream, each would lose its weight. But because most dissolve, the few that survive glow brighter. Their scarcity makes them sacred, like rare stars visible only in certain seasons. Breakthrough dreams remind us of the vastness that lies beyond forgetting, a cosmos of mind glimpsed only in fragments. To dream is to wander a world of endless creation. To forget is to return intact to this world. But when a dream breaks through, we stand briefly at the threshold between them, carrying proof that the two realms are not entirely separate. Something crosses over, something remains.
Sleep is not a single state, but a journey, a slow descent into layered realms of consciousness. To understand why we forget our dreams, and why some break through, we must first wander the architecture of sleep itself. It is a structure both intricate and ancient, built into the biology of every human being. Night after night, without conscious effort, we step into its design. Scientists divide sleep into two broad categories: non-REM and REM. Yet within these are further stages, each with its mysteries. Non-REM sleep is composed of stages 1 through 3, moving from light drowsiness to the depths of slow-wave rest. REM sleep, by contrast, is a realm of heightened brain activity, paradoxically resembling waking consciousness more than any other stage. The cycle through these phases repeats across the night like a tide, ebbing and flowing in roughly 90-minute waves. Stage 1 of non-REM is the threshold, the liminal edge where waking thought begins to dissolve. Here the body relaxes, heart rate slows, When we awaken in the morning, it is often with only faint impressions of the dreams we have wandered through. Some dissolve instantly, like ink vanishing into water. Others cling for a few moments before they too slip into silence. And a few rare fragments remain etched into consciousness for days, years, or even lifetimes. This strange selectivity is not accidental. Within us exists a silent editor, one who decides which memories will remain and which will be cast away. That editor is the sleeping brain itself. Memory is not a single thing, but a process, a continuum of encoding, consolidation, and retrieval. During the day, experiences flood the mind, each carrying emotional tones, sensory impressions, and meaning. At night, while we sleep, these traces are replayed, strengthened, or quietly erased. The brain does not record life as a perfect archive. It sculpts and filters, choosing what will define us and what will vanish. In this balance, forgetting is just as important as remembering. Neuroscience has revealed that during non-REM sleep, particularly in the slow-wave stages, the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep in the brain, replays the day's experiences. These replays occur in rapid bursts, like echoes, sending information into the neocortex for long-term storage. Yet not every detail is preserved. The brain is selective, amplifying patterns and discarding noise. This is the editor at work, reducing the overwhelming flood of life into a manageable narrative. Dreams enter this equation in an unusual way. During REM sleep, the hippocampus behaves differently. Neurotransmitters such as norepinephrine, which aid in solidifying memories during wakefulness, are suppressed. This creates a paradoxical state. While the brain is highly active, weaving vivid and emotional dreamscapes, it is simultaneously impaired in its ability to commit those experiences to memory. It is as though the silent editor is deliberately withholding the pen, allowing the mind to imagine without consequence. Why would the brain design such a system? One possibility is that forgetting dreams protects the waking self. If every dream were remembered as vividly as daily experience, the boundaries between reality and imagination could blur. The continuity of life would fracture under the weight of so many competing narratives. Forgetting acts as a filter, preventing dreams from overwhelming waking memory. The silent editor enforces stability, ensuring that only what truly matters remains. Yet the editor is not absolute. Some dreams slip through. These are often the ones charged with strong emotion, whether joy, fear, or sorrow. Emotional intensity engages the amygdala, a center of feeling that can strengthen memory traces even in REM. Dreams tied to unresolved conflicts or powerful desires may be remembered precisely because they are unfinished, demanding attention. Here, the silent editor bends the rules, allowing fragments of the dream world to color the waking mind. There is also evidence that forgetting itself may be active, not passive. Certain neurons in the hippocampus and amygdala appear to promote forgetting by weakening synaptic connections. During sleep, these mechanisms prune unnecessary associations, clearing space for new learning. The silent editor is not discarding at random, but carefully sculpting the landscape of memory, ensuring that the mind remains flexible rather than cluttered. From a philosophical perspective, this raises profound questions. If the brain chooses what we remember and forget, then memory is not entirely ours to command. Our identities, shaped by the stories we retain, are the result of an unseen hand within us. We are not the sole authors of our past, but co-authors with the silent editor, who decides which pages are preserved and which are torn away. Ancient traditions sensed this long before neuroscience. The Greeks spoke of the river Lethe, whose waters cause souls to forget their past lives before rebirth. In Buddhism, memory is seen as a veil that obscures deeper awareness, with forgetting serving as a release from attachment. These myths and teachings echo the truth that forgetting is not merely loss, but transformation. The silent editor is the modern reflection of these ancient rivers and veils flowing within us each night. Consider how forgetting shapes the self. Every morning we awaken as a slightly different person, carrying only what the editor has allowed us to keep. Without this pruning, our minds would be burdened with too much. Every dream, every fleeting thought, every sensory fragment. Forgetting is the gift that makes room for clarity. It is not the enemy of memory, but its guardian. And yet forgetting also invites mystery. The dreams we lose are not gone in any final sense. Their fragments may linger in subtle ways, influencing mood, creativity, or intuition. A forgotten dream might inspire a sudden idea in the day, or whisper through a feeling we cannot name. The silent editor does not erase without trace, but transforms, weaving forgotten threads into the deeper fabric of the psyche. This duality, remembering and forgetting, pruning and preserving, defines the architecture of memory itself. To forget a dream is not a failure of the mind, but a deliberate design, a balance that protects us while allowing glimpses of mystery. Each morning we awaken from this silent editorial process renewed, carrying only what is necessary to continue the story of our waking lives. In this way, the silent editor is both guardian and artist. It preserves the continuity of the self while ensuring that the imagination can roam free in dreams, unburdened by the weight of permanence. What we forget each night is not truly lost, but offered back to the vast ocean of the unconscious. What we remember is what we are asked to carry forward. And so the self is shaped not only by what it knows, but by what it has been designed to forget. Dreams are often described as fleeting, like mist rising from a hidden sea. They come to us in fragments, in symbols, in sensations that slip away as soon as we reach for them. Yet beneath these scattered fragments lies something vast, a deep ocean of dreams, timeless and borderless, flowing through every human mind, across every culture and age. When we dream, we drift into that ocean. Its tides carry us, its waves reshape us, and its depths remain largely unexplored. The ocean of dreams is not merely metaphorical. Neuroscience shows that during REM sleep, our brains ignite with activity rivaling or even exceeding waking consciousness. The limbic system, tied to emotion, burns brightly, while the prefrontal cortex, linked to rational control, grows quiet. This imbalance creates a sea of images and emotions unconstrained by logic, a mental ocean where stories form out of pure feeling. To dream is to float upon these currents, swept into narratives we did not choose, yet which feel profoundly personal. Each night, billions of people enter this sea. The content of their dreams varies endlessly, yet certain themes emerge again and again. The sensation of falling, the appearance of strangers, flight through impossible skies. Such universals hint at shared structures of the human mind, patterns that repeat like tides in the ocean. Dreams may be individual, but they are also collective, carrying echoes of something deeper than any single life. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of archetypes and symbols. Modern science hesitates at such language, yet researchers recognize that dream content across cultures is remarkably consistent. But what purpose does this dream ocean serve? One answer lies in creativity. Dreams loosen the rigid chains of logic, allowing unlikely combinations to emerge. Artists, scientists, and inventors throughout history have spoken of inspirations rising from dreams. Paul McCartney heard the melody of yesterday in a dream. Dmitri Mendeleev glimpsed the periodic table in one. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was born from a dream. These are not isolated tales, but examples of how the dream ocean offers fragments of possibility drawn from beneath the conscious mind. In forgetting most of its waters, we still carry drops of inspiration back to waking life. Another answer lies in emotional regulation. The ocean of dreams may act as a vast workshop where the mind processes unresolved feelings. In REM sleep, the brain replays emotional experiences without the stress-inducing chemical norepinephrine. This allows painful memories to be re-encountered in a safe space, gently softened by the dream's symbolic form. To dream of being lost in a labyrinth, chased by a shadow, or reunited with a loved one long gone. These are not random images, but ways the ocean dissolves sharp pain into manageable waves. Dreams can soften grief, ease fear, and help us navigate the storms of waking life. The dream ocean also reveals the porous boundary between self and world. In waking life, we often feel separate, bounded by our skin and our story. In dreams, that boundary dissolves. We may become another person or many people at once. We may inhabit landscapes, animals, or forces of nature. The self becomes fluid, flowing into countless forms. This is why dreams feel both deeply intimate and strangely universal. They remind us that the self is not fixed, but changeable, not solitary, but part of a larger ocean. Forgetting most dreams is part of this design. To remember every journey through the ocean would overwhelm waking memory, drowning the self in too many selves, too many stories. Forgetting allows the dream ocean to remain infinite, while waking life remains coherent. Yet even forgotten dreams may leave subtle traces, like salt upon the skin after swimming. A dream we cannot recall may still color the day with a mood, a faint sense of wonder or unease. The ocean touches us, even if we do not carry its waves into memory. Across history, humans have tried to map this ocean. Ancient Egyptians saw dreams as messages from the divine, requiring interpretation. Indigenous cultures treated dreams as communal events, guiding decisions for the tribe. In medieval Europe, dreams were often viewed with suspicion, thought to be whispers from demons or divine warnings. In the 20th century, Freud interpreted them as expressions of repressed desire, while Jung envisioned them as windows into collective archetypes. Today, neuroscience studies brainwaves, neurotransmitters, and sleep cycles, searching for patterns in the sea. And yet, despite all these maps, the ocean remains largely unmapped, endless in depth. The ocean of dreams also holds the strange phenomenon of lucid dreaming, moments when the dreamer becomes aware of dreaming and can, with practice, shape the dream. This is like realizing one is swimming in water and suddenly learning to breathe within it. Lucid dreamers describe flying through cities, conversing with dream figures, or exploring landscapes of impossible beauty. Some even use lucid dreaming for problem-solving, training, or spiritual exploration. In such moments, the dream ocean reveals itself as both playground and teacher. Philosophers have long wondered whether waking life itself might be another kind of dream. The ancient Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi wrote of dreaming he was a butterfly, then awakening unsure whether he was Zhuangzi who dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming of Zhuangzi. The dream ocean dissolves the line between illusion and reality, showing that both may be forms of experience carried by consciousness. Perhaps the true ocean is not only in dreams, but in existence itself, where waking and dreaming are waves of the same water. As we drift through this nightly ocean, we are reminded of our fragility and vastness. Fragile, because dreams dissolve so quickly, slipping through our hands as though made of smoke. Vast, because the ocean connects us to something larger than ourselves, a shared field of imagination and emotion that stretches beyond the boundaries of any single life. Each night, we surrender to this ocean, not knowing where its currents will carry us, yet trusting that it will bring us back to shore by morning. The ocean of dreams is endless, and we are designed to forget most of it. But forgetting is not absence. It is what allows the ocean to remain immense, mysterious, and fertile. Each forgotten wave nourishes the depths of the psyche, shaping us in ways we may never consciously know. To enter sleep is to return to this sea, to float for a time in its waters, and then to awaken, carrying a drop of its infinity into the day. Between waking and dreaming lies a delicate seam, a fragile boundary as thin as mist at dawn. It is the threshold where the body sleeps, but the mind still hovers near awareness, or where the dreamer begins to rise, but has not yet returned fully to the day. We experience it in fragments. The drifting images that appear as we fall asleep, the sudden jolt of hypnic jerks when the body feels it has stumbled, the lingering shadows of dreams upon waking. These thresholds remind us that sleep and waking are not separate realms, but continuous, joined by invisible bridges. Science calls these states hypnagogia and hypnopompia, the moments when we are entering sleep and when we are emerging from it. In hypnagogia, the mind slips into dreamlike imagery while still aware of the body. Shapes, colors, and sudden thoughts flicker in chaotic patterns. Some describe hearing voices, music, or seeing flashes of faces. In hypnopompia, as we awaken, dreams can cling stubbornly to the edges of consciousness, blending with the first perceptions of the morning. The fragile boundary is where worlds overlap, where the ocean of dreams touches the land of waking. At this border, we often encounter paradox. We may believe we are awake, only to realize moments later we are still dreaming. We may awaken from a dream within a dream, unsure where the real boundary lies. Such experiences shake our trust and certainty. How do we know in any moment that this waking reality is not another dream? The fragile boundary blurs not only the transition between sleep and waking, but also the distinction between illusion and reality. Cultures throughout history have treated this boundary with reverence. In ancient Greece, the god Hypnos was said to reside in a cave beside the river of forgetfulness, Lethe. Dreams emerged from his domain, slipping into the minds of sleepers. The threshold of sleep was therefore a sacred passage, a doorway through which divine or prophetic visions could arrive. In many indigenous traditions, the transition between waking and dreaming is not a trivial blur, but a sacred crossing, where messages and guidance may be received. To linger in this fragile state is to stand at a portal between worlds. Modern science, though more cautious, finds this boundary equally fascinating. During the moments of transition, brainwave activity shifts rapidly. Alpha waves associated with relaxed wakefulness give way to theta waves tied to creativity and dreaming. This neural liminality allows the brain to make unexpected associations, often sparking creativity. Thomas Edison is said to have napped with steel balls in his hands, so that as he drifted into hypnagogia, the balls would fall and wake him, allowing him to capture the strange inventive ideas that appeared in that fragile state. Artists like Salvador Dali used similar techniques, dipping into the threshold of dreams to gather inspiration. The fragile boundary also explains the unsettling phenomenon of sleep paralysis. Here, the body remains in the paralysis of REM sleep, meant to protect us from acting out our dreams, while the mind awakens partially into awareness. The result is an eerie state where one feels awake but unable to move, often accompanied by hallucinations. Across cultures, these experiences have been interpreted as night demons, shadow beings, or spirits pressing upon the chest. Science explains them as misalignments in sleep cycles, but their emotional impact speaks to the power of this boundary. When waking and dreaming overlap, the ordinary rules of reality dissolve, leaving us vulnerable to awe, terror, and mystery. The fragile boundary is not just a neurological curiosity, but also a metaphor for the human condition. We live at boundaries, between life and death, certainty and mystery, the known and the unknown. Just as dreams blur into waking, so too does memory blur into forgetting and self-blur into other. The boundary is fragile because we ourselves are fragile, never fully anchored in permanence. Every night, we rehearse this truth as we cross back and forth between the shores of sleep. What makes the boundary so haunting is its impermanence. We cannot stay within it for long. The moment we become too aware, sleep slips away. The moment we sink too deeply, awareness vanishes. It is like trying to balance on a knife's edge, a place we pass through but cannot inhabit. And yet, its very fragility is what makes it valuable. In its brief opening, we glimpse truths obscured in waking clarity, that reality is layered, that the self is fluid, that consciousness is not a single state, but a spectrum. Perhaps we are designed to forget much of what happens at this threshold so that waking life can remain stable. But forgetting does not erase the experience entirely. Like a dream, the fragile boundary leaves impressions, a strange feeling upon waking, a sudden insight, a lingering mood. These echoes are reminders of the unseen bridges that carry us between worlds each night. The fragile boundary teaches us that waking and dreaming are not opposites, but companions, two sides of the same coin. To live fully awake is also to live with the awareness that dreaming shapes us. To surrender to sleep is to trust that waking will return. The seam between the two is where mystery whispers, reminding us that consciousness is never fixed, always flowing, always porous. We are designed to walk this line each day and night, to cross the fragile boundary without holding it too tightly. For it is not a place to dwell, but a passage, a soft reminder that all of life itself may be a boundary, a dream within a dream, fragile and fleeting, yet endlessly profound. We like to think of memory as a faithful archive, a vast library where every experience is preserved. Yet the truth is far stranger. Forgetting is not a failure of the mind, but a feature of its design. Just as cities cannot function without removing waste, the mind cannot function without forgetting. It is not absence, but architecture, carefully built into the structure of consciousness. If memory is the scaffolding of identity, then forgetting is the space between the beams, the emptiness that gives the structure shape. Without forgetting, memory would collapse beneath its own weight. Neuroscience reveals that the brain is not a permanent recording device, but a dynamic system. Each time we recall an event, we do not simply retrieve it unchanged. We reconstruct it, reshaping details, discarding pieces, even fabricating new ones. Memory is less a photograph and more a painting, continuously repainted. Forgetting is essential to this process, pruning unnecessary details so that what remains feels coherent. Our lives are not stored in perfect fidelity, but sculpted by omission. The architecture of forgetting makes room for the narrative of self to exist. At the cellular level, forgetting has structure, synaptic connections, the tiny junctions where neurons communicate, strengthen with repetition and weaken without use. This is known as synaptic pruning. Just as a gardener trims branches so a tree may grow stronger, the brain trims unused connections, allowing the most relevant pathways to flourish. Forgetting, then, is not decay but refinement. We are designed to let go, because only through letting go can we adapt to the endless flood of new experience. Sleep plays a central role in this architecture. During deep sleep, the brain appears to replay and reorganize memories, consolidating some while discarding others. The hippocampus, a structure critical to memory, temporarily holds recent experiences, deciding which to keep and which to release. Experiments suggest that sleep helps us extract meaning while discarding trivial details, remembering the melody of a song, but not every background noise, recalling the lesson of an encounter, but not the precise color of the walls. In this way, forgetting sharpens memory, distilling it into essence. Consider how unbearable life would be without forgetting. Every mundane moment, every step, every face glimpsed on the street, every word spoken, would pile endlessly into consciousness. There are rare cases of individuals with hyperthymesia, a condition of near-perfect autobiographical memory. They can recall almost every day of their lives in vivid detail. Yet rather than granting them power, it often brings suffering. They are unable to escape the weight of the past, haunted by every detail, unable to move on. Forgetting, by contrast, allows us to live in the present, unburdened by the vastness of what has been. The architecture of forgetting also serves an emotional purpose. Painful memories, while never fully erased, often soften with time. Their sharp edges dull, allowing healing to occur. This is not a flaw but a design that protects the psyche. To remember every sorrow in its full intensity would paralyze us. Forgetting provides mercy, offering space for joy to return. Even grief, though never gone, transforms through the architecture of forgetting, changing from a searing wound to a tender scar. But forgetting is not only protective, it is creative. By discarding details, the mind creates room for imagination. The gaps in memory invite us to invent, to dream, to tell stories that bridge the unknown. Every myth, every work of art, every invention is born in the fertile soil of forgetting. We forget in order to imagine. We let go in order to create. This architecture ensures that the mind is not a mere archive, but a living engine of possibility. Philosophers have long sensed this truth. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote of active forgetting, not as weakness, but as strength, the ability to clear space, to make room for becoming. He compared forgetting to the doorkeeper of consciousness, preventing us from being overwhelmed. Similarly, Buddhist teachings emphasize the impermanence of memory and self, reminding us that clinging to every detail is a form of suffering. Forgetting is not the enemy of wisdom, but its ally, a quiet partner in the pursuit of peace. Yet forgetting also unsettles us. We fear the erosion of memory because it seems to erode identity. Diseases like Alzheimer's embody this fear, revealing how fragile the architecture can be. Watching memory unravel is like watching a city collapse, its streets and landmarks disappearing into fog. And yet, even in these conditions, forgetting does not erase the humanity of the person. The architecture may crumble, but the essence, the presence, the spark of being remains. Perhaps the greatest mystery of forgetting lies in its selectivity. Why do some memories vanish while others persist? Why can a smell from childhood suddenly unlock a flood of detail long forgotten? Science suggests that emotional salience, repetition, and context all play roles. Yet there is also an element of unpredictability, as if forgetting follows a logic beyond our grasp. We are left with fragments, mosaics, echoes. In this way, forgetting feels less like destruction and more like curation, as if consciousness is an artist choosing what strokes to leave on the canvas. The architecture of forgetting is not a flaw, but a necessity, not an accident, but a design. To live is to forget, not everything, but enough. Enough to move forward, enough to imagine, enough to find peace. Forgetting is the silent counterpart to memory, the hidden hand that shapes the story we call a life. And so, when we wonder why we cannot remember every dream, every fleeting detail of our days, the answer lies here. We are built to forget, not to lose ourselves, but to find ourselves again and again in new forms, in new moments. Forgetting is not the collapse of memory, but its foundation, the architecture that holds the fragile palace of consciousness together. When the mind drifts into sleep, it does not rest idly. Instead, it enters worlds of its own making, landscapes woven from fragments of memory, emotion, and imagination. For much of human history, these nightly visions were seen as omens, messages from the divine, or gateways to hidden realms. Today, science suggests something equally wondrous. Dreams may serve as training grounds, simulations where the brain rehearses life itself. The idea is simple, yet profound. During dreams, the brain conjures scenarios that mirror waking life. Often we run, we fight, we flee, we solve problems, we navigate social encounters. Though these events are not real, the emotions they evoke are vivid. By practicing within these imagined spaces, the mind prepares us for survival, sharpening instincts without exposing us to real danger. Dreams become a hidden school, teaching us through illusion. The threat simulation theory of dreaming suggests that nightmares, in particular, are rehearsals for survival. When we dream of being chased, of falling, of losing something precious, the brain is not punishing us, it is training us. These simulations Extinction is the great silence that shadows life. Every creature that walks the earth, every species that swims the oceans, every bird that fills the sky, all of them carry within their existence the inevitability of ending. To live is to be poised on the edge of disappearance, for extinction is not an anomaly, but the rule. More species have vanished than survive, their voices erased from the chorus of Earth. When we speak of extinction, we speak of the fate that defines the history of life itself. 5 times in Earth's deep past, silence has fallen suddenly and catastrophically, in what scientists call mass extinctions. The Ordovician, the Devonian, the Permian, the Triassic, and the Cretaceous. Epochs marked by collapse, when whole branches of the tree of life were cut away. The most devastating, the Permian extinction, extinguished over 90% of marine species and nearly 70% of land species. It was not merely death on a grand scale. It was the erasure of worlds, the vanishing of forms never to return. And yet, within that silence, something extraordinary always follows. Life persists. New creatures emerge from the ruins. After the dinosaurs were erased at the end of the Cretaceous, mammals rose, filling niches that had lain dormant. From extinction's silence, new songs emerge. The world we inhabit now, filled with birdsong, forests, and human voices, is itself the child of ancient extinctions. Without the silencing of what came before, we would not be here to wonder at the stillness that remains. But extinction is not only an ancient event, it is also a present reality. Biologists warn that we are living through a 6th mass extinction, driven not by asteroids or volcanic eruptions, but by human hands. Forests are cut, oceans acidify, climates shift, and species vanish at a pace far faster than natural cycles would dictate. The silence deepens around us, not in the distant past, but in the world we walk each day. The frog no longer sings in the wetlands, the insect no longer hums in the field, the whale no longer calls in the deep. It is a silence we create, knowingly or not. Extinction, in this sense, is both scientific reality and philosophical mirror. It reminds us of impermanence, of the fragile temporality of existence. To contemplate extinction is to confront the truth that nothing lasts forever, not species, not civilizations, not even stars. The universe itself will one day fall silent, its galaxies dimming, its energy spent. The silence of extinction is woven into the very fabric of existence. To live is to be fleeting, no matter the scale. And yet, silence is not only loss, it is also space for reflection. In the absence of what has vanished, we become aware of the miracle of what remains. The bird still singing, the tree still growing, the breath still rising in our lungs. These are no less wondrous because they are temporary. In fact, their impermanence gives them weight. If life were endless, it might become invisible. Because it can vanish, it shines brighter, like a flame in the dark. Extinction frames existence, reminding us that to be alive now, in this brief interlude between silences, is extraordinary. There is a curious parallel here to the silence of dreams. When we sleep, the waking world fades. We lose the continuity of ordinary life and enter a kind of extinction of identity. Yet from that silence, new visions emerge. Dreams rise from absence, just as new species rise after catastrophe. Every night is a rehearsal of extinction and renewal. We dissolve, we vanish, and we return. The rhythm of life and death plays itself out on the intimate stage of the mind. The silence of extinction also carries weight beyond the biological or personal. It raises questions about memory. What happens when not only creatures, but their stories, are erased? Each vanished species carried a unique history of survival, a lineage stretching back millions of years. When it is gone, so too is its memory. The silence deepens, not only in forests and oceans, but in the record of being itself. The world forgets. And yet, in our age, we have become archivists of the vanishing. We record DNA, photographs, sounds, even attempts to preserve living specimens. Perhaps this too is part of our dream, to resist silence by leaving echoes. Still, the silence cannot be fully resisted. It is too vast, too inevitable. What we can do is recognize it, honor it, and live with awareness of its shadow. To know that extinction waits is not only sorrowful, but urgent. It reminds us to cherish what is here, to protect what we can, and to marvel at the fragile beauty of life. It calls us to humility, to see ourselves not as conquerors of nature, but as participants in its delicate dance. The silence of extinction is ultimately not emptiness, but a stage in the cycle. It is not the end of the story, but the opening of a space where new stories may unfold. To contemplate extinction is not to despair, but to see life more clearly, to understand that its essence is transformation, not permanence. What has vanished makes room for what will come, just as what we are will one day make room for what follows. We live not outside this rhythm, but within it. And so, when we think of extinction, we might also think of the dream. In both there is a fading, a dissolving of form. In both, there is the emergence of the unexpected, arising in the silence. Life itself is a dream woven through with extinction, a fragile pattern dancing between presence and absence. The silence is not our enemy, but our companion, always at the edge of perception, reminding us to listen deeply to the brief, miraculous sound of life. Memory is often thought of as something personal, a fragile archive stored in the folds of the brain. We imagine it as a library of images and sensations, a record of the places we have walked, the faces we have loved, the moments that have defined our lives. Yet memory is not limited to the individual. It ripples outward, embedded in biology, in culture, in the very structures of the universe. Each of us carries not only our own memories, but echoes of lives we never lived, patterns that stretch far beyond the boundary of personal experience. Every civilization builds its monuments, its archives, its libraries with the hope of outlasting time. We carve stone, inscribe clay tablets, write books, etch data into silicon, all gestures meant to resist forgetting. Yet forgetting is the shadow that follows every act of memory. No empire, no language, no culture has ever endured without loss. What we call history is not the sum of everything that happened, but the fragments that survive the relentless tide of forgetting. Collective forgetting does not arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly, like the erosion of a coastline, unremarkable in the moment, yet devastating across centuries. A word falls out of use. A story ceases to be told. A ritual fades into obscurity. Piece by piece, the memory of a people dissolves, until what remains is only an outline, an echo, a ruin. The weight of collective forgetting is not just what is lost, but the silence left behind, a silence that cannot be filled, only acknowledged. Consider the fall of ancient civilizations. The great libraries of Alexandria and Nineveh, once holding vast knowledge, now exist only in fragments and speculation. Whole philosophies, scientific insights, cosmologies erased. We live with the consequences of this absence, inheritors not of the full richness of human thought, but of what happened to survive. Even the mightiest empires, whose rulers imagined themselves eternal, are now remembered as dust, their cities reclaimed by jungle or desert. The weight of forgetting is measured not only in ruins, but in the absence of voices that can no longer speak. And yet collective forgetting is not always destruction. Sometimes it is deliberate, even merciful. Societies choose to forget as a way of healing, leaving behind traumas too heavy to carry. After wars, communities may fall into silence, not because the memories are gone, but because remembering them endlessly would mean never moving forward. Forgetting, in this sense, is a form of release. It allows wounds to scar over, histories to close, lives to begin anew. To carry everything would be unbearable. Forgetting makes it possible for a future to exist. Still, there is a tension. What is forgotten is never truly gone. It lingers beneath the surface, shaping culture in ways unseen. The trauma not spoken of may echo in the next generation. The stories not told may reappear in altered form, disguised as myths or fears or dreams. Collective forgetting is not an erasure but a burial, and buried things, like seeds, have a way of returning when conditions allow. What a culture forgets may be precisely what later generations most need to remember. This is why ruins captivate us. Standing before the remnants of a vanished city, we feel the weight of forgetting. The stones are silent, but we imagine the lives once lived there, the voices in the marketplace, the prayers in the temple, the laughter of children. We project memory onto silence, creating ghost stories where none remain. The power of ruins lies not only in what they show, but in what they withhold. They remind us that forgetting is inevitable, but also that forgetting does not erase the desire to remember. The weight of collective forgetting is also evident in our relationship to the natural world. Entire species have vanished from memory, their existence known only through fossils or bones. Forests that once stretched endlessly across continents have been reduced to fragments. Rivers that sustained civilizations have dried into dust. Future generations may look back on our own age and find it marked by the great forgetting of nature. In our rush toward progress, how much of the living memory of the earth will we let slip away? What songs of birds, what scents of flowers, what migrations of animals will be lost, leaving only silence where life once sang? Forgetting also shapes identity. Nations build themselves not only on what they remember, but on what they choose to forget. Myths of origin, stories of triumph, ideals of unity, all are selective memories constructed upon silences and omissions. The darker parts of history are often hidden, minimized, or denied, creating identities that are half remembered, half forgotten. Yet those forgotten parts never disappear completely. They persist as fault lines, waiting for the pressure of truth to bring them back to light. Collective forgetting, in this sense, is a temporary illusion. Sooner or later, the buried resurfaces. In dreams, we sometimes encounter this hidden layer. A civilization may dream of gods it no longer worships, of languages it no longer speaks, of fears it no longer names. Dreams carry fragments of the forgotten, offering glimpses into the deep reservoir of memory that underlies culture. A people may not consciously recall its ancient rituals, yet in times of crisis or celebration, gestures resurface, archetypes reawaken, and the past breathes again. Forgetting is never absolute. It is a veil through which memory still flickers. And so collective forgetting is both burden and blessing. It is the burden of loss, of silence, of absence. But it is also the blessing of release, of making space for new life. The paradox is that what we forget shapes us just as powerfully as what we remember. A society defined only by memory would be trapped, unable to evolve. A society defined only by forgetting would drift without anchor or continuity. Between the two lies the fragile balance of culture, a balance we are always renegotiating. Perhaps this is why we build archives and monuments, even knowing they too will one day fall. The act of remembering is not only about preservation, it is about resistance, about refusing to yield entirely to silence. Even as forgetting claims vast portions of the past, we keep carving our marks, writing our words, planting our seeds of memory. For a while, they endure. For a while, they carry us forward. And even when they too dissolve, the impulse to remember, the yearning against forgetting, is itself a memory carried by humanity across time. The weight of collective forgetting is heavy, but it does not crush us. Instead, it humbles us. It reminds us that we are not eternal, that we are threads in a vast tapestry whose patterns stretch beyond our vision. To live with this awareness is not to despair, but to walk gently, to remember what we can, to let go of what we must, and to accept that forgetting, too, is part of the dream we are living. To dream is to imagine without boundaries. It is to inhabit worlds that dissolve when we wake, yet feel as real as the one we return to. What if the universe itself is dreaming, and we are fragments within its vast and unbroken sleep? If the cosmos dreams, then every star, every atom, every life is a fleeting image in its mind. What we call reality may be no more fixed than a night vision, shimmering, impermanent, yet profoundly meaningful in its moment. The idea that the cosmos might be dreaming is not new. Ancient traditions often frame it as a dream of gods or of the eternal. In Hindu philosophy, the universe is sometimes described as the dream of Vishnu, the cosmic preserver, who sleeps on the endless serpent of infinity, his breath cycling through creation and destruction. In certain strands of Buddhist thought, existence itself is Maya, an illusion, a transient pattern that holds no permanent essence. Even in the West, philosophers like Descartes wondered whether our entire perception could be the fabrication of a powerful dreamer. Across cultures, the intuition arises again and again. Perhaps reality is less solid At the heart of every dream lies a paradox. The dream feels real, yet we know it is not. When we wake, the illusion dissolves, but its emotional truth lingers. In this way, dreams live on, not as realities, but as resonances. What then does it mean to awaken without waking? To remain within the dream of existence while recognizing its fleeting nature. Perhaps this is the deepest invitation of life, to live fully within the dream, to honor its beauty, its strangeness, its sorrow, and its wonder, while never mistaking it for permanence. To the dream, but to see it clearly. It is to recognize that memory, so fragile, is not a failing but a feature of the design. Forgetting gives space for renewal. Sleep washes away the clutter of experience so that waking can feel like a beginning. Life, too, erases itself as it moves forward. Generations pass. Civilizations crumble. The cosmos itself fades into entropy. Yet within this dissolving, newness always emerges. Stars collapse, and new stars are born. Dreams end, and new dreams unfold. The dreamer never ceases. Only the visions change. We often resist forgetting. There is a moment just before sleep when thought grows faint, when memory drifts like a feather caught in a breeze. In that moment, you exist in a fragile balance, not quite awake, not yet fully dreaming. This is the threshold where forgetting becomes complete, where the world of waking slips away and another world opens in silence. It is a place beyond effort, beyond intention, where you are simply carried. In this silence, something curious happens. Though you forget the details of the day, though you release the fragments of thought that once weighed upon you, a deeper presence remembers. The body remembers how to breathe without your command. The heart remembers its quiet rhythm. The cells remember the ancient instructions inscribed in their DNA. You, as an individual, forget, but life itself remembers. You are held by that remembering even as you let go. Imagine a great ocean. The surface waves rise and fall, sometimes fierce, sometimes calm. They seem to vanish as quickly as they appear, dissolving into foam. But the ocean itself remains, holding every motion, every depth. Your thoughts are the waves, brief and passing. Your forgetting is the foam. But beneath it all is the vast remembering of being, a silence that has always known you, even when you have forgotten yourself. We are often taught to fear forgetting, to cling to memory as though it were the only safeguard against disappearance. Yet memory is fragile. It slips, it falters, it changes with retelling. What you remember today is not what you remembered yesterday. The mind reshapes the past each time it is recalled. In that way, memory is as dreamlike as dreaming itself. But silence, the deep silence beneath forgetting, does not shift. It is constant. It is the ground of your existence, the canvas upon which memory and forgetting alike are painted. When ancient traditions spoke of enlightenment, they often described it not as a gaining, but as a letting go, a release of clinging, a return to a deeper awareness that is already there. Forgetting, in its own way, is a quiet teacher of this lesson. It shows you that you do not need to grasp every detail. You do not need to hold every thread of thought. You are free to let go, because there is a silence beneath, steady and unshaken, that remembers you without words. Science too hints at this truth. The human brain, when entering deep sleep, shifts into rhythms that strip away unnecessary noise. Synaptic pruning occurs. Neural chatter quiets. Large-scale patterns of activity synchronize, creating something like a great harmonic wave across the brain. The details are set aside, yet the core of identity, the body's wisdom, the organism's coherence, remains intact. Forgetting clears the surface while the deeper patterns endure. The silence remembers, even as thought dissolves. And what is this silence? Perhaps it is nothing more than the ongoing hum of life, the quiet background that sustains every moment. Perhaps it is something larger, something cosmic, a stillness that pervades not only the body, but the universe itself. The ancient mystics spoke of such silence as the foundation of being, a presence beyond form. Physicists, in their own language, speak of fields that permeate the cosmos, invisible, yet foundational. Different words, perhaps the same intuition. There is a silence that holds everything. When you let go into sleep, you touch this silence without effort. You do not control it, you do not summon it. You simply fall into it as naturally as a stone sinks into water. The dream carries you, and then even the dream dissolves, leaving only the quiet expanse of unknowing. And yet, when you awaken, you return not to emptiness, but to renewal. The silence has remembered you through the night, and in the morning you begin again. This is why, perhaps, forgetting is not to be feared. Each night is a small rehearsal for the greater forgetting at the end of life, when all memories fade, when the dream of self dissolves. But even then, the silence remains. Just as sleep carries you back each morning, perhaps the greater silence carries you onward still, into a remembering that is beyond words. Whether you call it nature, the cosmos, the soul, or simply the mystery, it is there, steady, present, vast. And so here, at the closing of this journey, you may rest. You have wandered through memory and forgetting, through dream and waking, through science and myth, through what is known and what is hidden. You have seen that forgetting is not an accident, but a design, a rhythm, a gift. You have seen that in the soft erasure of memory, life itself is sustained. And now, as you drift deeper, you may let go fully, knowing that you are not falling into emptiness, but into a silence that remembers you completely. The waves fade, the thoughts loosen, the dream gathers, and beneath it all, the silence remains, holding you gently, carrying you into rest. Sleep now, in the embrace of forgetting, in the endless dream that is life, in the silence that remembers you. Rest now. You have wandered far, through questions of memory and forgetting, through the fragile edges of dreams, through the spaces where science and myth touch hands. You have carried your awareness like a lantern through the night. But now the lantern can be set down. The flame can dim. The silence will guide you the rest of the way. You were never meant to carry everything. You were designed to release, to allow the weight of thought to slip away like sand falling back into the sea. The mind is a restless current, always weaving patterns, always searching for the next shore. Yet you are not only the current. You are also the depth of the ocean beneath it, vast, quiet, unbroken. Every breath you take is a small surrender. Inhale, the world enters you. Exhale, you let the world go. Breath has always known the secret. You are not here to hold forever. You are here to move, to flow, to forget. And yet, forgetting is not loss. It is transformation. A leaf that falls into the soil is not gone. It becomes the ground from which life rises again. So it is with you. Each memory that fades returns its energy to the deeper silence, where it is not destroyed, but transfigured. You may never recall the details, but the essence remains, reshaped into wisdom, woven into being. Forgetting is not an erasure. It is the way life makes space for new beginnings. Close your eyes if you have not already. Feel how darkness is not emptiness, but a cradle. The body grows soft here. The mind loosens its grasp. Thoughts become lighter, less insistent, until they dissolve into mist. Beyond them, you begin to hear the deeper music, not of words, not of stories, but of presence. A hum beneath everything. A stillness that is alive. This is the dream that dreams you. It does not belong to you, nor does it end with you. Long before you opened your eyes for the first time, this dream was already flowing, shaping stars, sculpting rivers, turning silence into song. Long after your memories have faded, long after your small flame has gone out, the dream will continue, weaving new lives, new forms, new awakenings. You are a verse in an endless poem, a note in an infinite melody. You are carried, always carried. The great paradox is this: you forget so that the dream can continue. If you remembered everything, you would be too heavy to move, too weighted to drift into what is new. Forgetting is the dream's mercy. It frees you to be reborn in every moment. It allows each morning to feel like the first dawn. It lets each touch, each word, each silence feel alive again, as though for the first time. The ancients knew this truth in their own way. They told stories of souls drinking from the river of forgetting before entering the world again, so they could live without the burden of infinite memory. They told of gods who slept so that the cosmos could be renewed. Science too shows us this rhythm, the brain cleansing itself at night, pruning, resetting, making way for clarity. Different languages, same wisdom. Forgetting is how life remembers itself. And now, as you sink deeper into rest, you may let go without fear. You are not falling into nothingness. You are falling into the dream that dreams you. You are falling into the silence that holds you. You are falling into the endless night that is not an ending, but a beginning, again and again. Listen to the quiet. Let it expand. Let it carry you beyond the borders of thought, beyond the edge of memory, beyond even the name you call yourself. For in this silence, there is no need for names, no need for past or future. There is only this, a stillness that breathes, a vastness that cradles, a dream that is both within you and beyond you. Sleep now with trust. Sleep now with peace. Sleep now as though you were returning to the place you never left. Forgetting is not your enemy. It is your design. It is your release. It is the door to freedom, the path back to the ocean, the bridge to the dream. And as you drift away, remember this one truth, not with the mind, but with the heart that continues to beat even when you are gone from yourself. You were designed to forget. You were designed to dream. You were designed to be carried by something larger, something timeless, something that remembers you when you cannot remember yourself. The dream dreams you, always has,